everybody, Gina DeLuca here. All right, today we will be playing with a limited palette. I have two colors here. This one is Phthalo Blue by Liquitex Basics, and this is a custom blended color. I am trying to match someone's school colors, and I was having a difficult time achieving the shade of yellow that I needed using just the satin enamel so I used the Liquitex Basics Cadmium Yellow Deep Hue with the satin enamel, but it came out a little too bright. So I added some 24 karat gold from the Americana Decor Metallics line at DecoArt, and a touch of copper also from the Metallics line at DecoArt, and that put me in the right family. I didn't want it to be too blingy, so I have the satin enamel in there, and we'll see how this turns out. I have never mixed the satin enamel and a metallic paint together, so this is going to be a true experiment. Hopefully it pans out. And these paints have been mixed 1 part paint to 2 parts Floetrol. The satin enamel mix, typically I do 50% satin enamel and 50% of whatever other paint I'm going to use. That's what I started with, and then I added the metallics to that. Generally, when I use the metallics, I just use the metallics and Floetrol with my typical 1 part paint to 2 part Floetrol. We'll see what happens. All of the DecoArt paints are cell makers. When used with a glossier paint, they dry matte, and matte paints have a hydrophobic effect. They push away the glossier paints. So theoretically, this should work out fine. Theoretically, we'll see what happens. If you want to get your hands on some of these DecoArt paints, there is a link in the description box that has the affiliate code. It's a coupon code. Get yourself 20% off. And also, if you use that link, I receive a commission at no additional cost to you that goes with all of my affiliates. Please do check those out. It's a way to give back. You're going to be buying the stuff anyway. It's a way to give back to your favorite artists without costing you anything extra. So, again, these paints are mixed 1 part paint to 2 parts Floetrol until I get the consistency that I'm looking for. Well, then I add water. I add water to the 1 part paint to 2 parts Floetrol until I get the consistency that I'm looking for, which is about a 2 on my consistency scale. It is making a mound, but it disappears pretty quickly. It's making a nice, thin, even stream off of my stick. If it gets thin and thick and thick and thin, then you need to keep mixing because your consistency is inconsistent. And that will cause you problems when it comes time to tilt or spin. The paints will move at an uneven rate. Before we get started, have you seen the Fluid Art inspiration cards? If you have, you can fast forward about a minute. If you have not, what we have are 52 cards. There are 42 technique cards, and each technique card has an associated video here on YouTube that gives you all of the information that you need, the exact paint brand, consistency, the recipe, of course the technique, all of the things that I can't fit onto a card. This is a picture of the painting in that video. This box contains a tip for this technique, and here at the bottom you have the color palette that was used in this painting. And then these 2 boxes can be used together as the basis of a 2-color palette like what we're doing today, or you can build off of those colors. And there are also 8 bonus color palette cards. Each one has 5 color palettes. You can use all of the colors or just some of the colors. Mix and match the bonus color palette cards with the technique cards, and you have more combinations than you could ever paint in a lifetime. These are available at my website, ginadeluca.net, and also at amazon.com. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is put some paint in my cup. I'm gonna do about 3 ounces. Usually I do 2, but because I'm only using 2 colors, I'm going to do 3. And I'm going to lay down my base coat. Let me get this stuff out of the way. I am not all together today. Tripping over my own tongue, forgetting my words. Okay, laying down a base coat. I want the paints to slide around easily and evenly. A base coat will help to do that. And as you can see, I have already covered my edges. The reason that I do that, my mix is pretty thin and I'm using Floetrol. That combination does not give me the best coverage on the edges of my canvas. And instead of having to come back later and touch it up, or even potentially having to frame it because the sides don't look good, I just cover them first. It takes 2 minutes tops to cover the edges, and it can save me a whole lot of time and money later down the line. I like to troubleshoot before there's trouble. So I have to lay down a base coat because something has to stick to the side of the canvas, or something has to stick to the canvas first, right? So if it's not your base coat, it's going to be your poured paints. And sometimes the coolest things happen on the edge of that puddle. And if you are pouring onto a bald canvas, a naked canvas, it is the edges of that puddle that are going to stick first, and then the center of the puddle is going to roll over top of the edges. This can also happen even if you are using a base coat and you are tilting too quickly. So if you are using a base coat and you are finding that your puddle is rolling over itself, slow down. My base coat is down. I'm just going to pop some of the bubbles that are in it. And now to put the paint in the cup. Be sure to check your consistency before adding your paints to your cup. The sauce may thicken upon standing. I'm going to pour this from up high. I want it to sink and churn. I want as much contact between the gold and the blue as possible. And now I'm going to just add a bit of what is left on top here. I may reserve a bit, or maybe not, in case I needed a little extra love on the corners. But if I need to mix more up, I can, because this is just straight phthalo blue. Okay. I'm going to do a spiral pour. Actually, let me see some more bubbles. All right. I am going to pour in a spiral fashion, doing my best to stay in the center of the canvas. And it is what comes out of the cup last that is going to end up being the focal point, so I try to be careful. As I get toward the end of the cup, I get closer to the canvas and I spin slower. Oh dear, look what I did. Heavens to Murgatroyd. Well, that certainly is a bummer. Okay, well, let's see what I can do with that. I really stuck my finger in it this time. Just see how much I can minimize that line. I have a bit more green popping up than I'd like. So popping the bubbles, if there is a layer of gold underneath of here, when I pop that bubble, it will bring some of that gold up with it, and because matte paints have a hydrophobic effect when they are used with a glossy paint, it will push that glossy paint away. Those cells will grow and expand and give me cool boulder cells. Well, I am not getting the color separation that I was hoping for. More green than I wanted. There is no green in school colors. It is just blue and yellow. When I use the satin enamel paints, I get a lot better separation than I do when I use the metallics. The metallics can blend a little more. Well, I may wind up having to do another. All right, let's give this a spin. See what happens. And remember, folks, you do not have to spin fast. Okay, so this side is spinning off easier than this side, so I'm going to shift so it comes off this side a little more. It's kind of like being on one of those little merry-go-round type things at the playground. The further you are towards the edge, the more you get pulled. I am bummed about all the green that is coming up. That is a bummer. Yeah, so I can see here the metallics doing what they do. That's what I was afraid of. The mica kind of floats and you get this blending that happens. That can be very cool, but for what I'm going for, this is not working for me. Well, I'm just gonna add a bit of paint to these corners just to let them spin out a bit more easily. Going to push the canvas in the direction of the corner that I need covered. Sometimes, if your sides aren't evenly wet with paint, it might resist going over the edge. That's kind of what's happening here. That is way too much green for what I am going for here. These are not the school colors, so I may just have to do another. And, you know, like I said, this was an experiment. I had never mixed these paints together before, so I wasn't sure how it was going to react. Now I see. I mean, I don't hate it. It's a lovely spiral. The my little finger swipe in there seems to be hidden well enough. But I have too much green in this painting, so I'm going to have to do something about that. I guess I'm gonna let this sit and see what it's gonna do. and I'll bring you back for a close-up. Back in a few. Okay, here it is. This piece is just about dry. It's just the center. But showing it dry, I can show you this. You can see the background has a bit more gloss to it than the cells. And that is what gives us the cells. It's a bit more green than I was hoping for, so I will be doing another one with just satin enamels. The metallic paints have a tendency to kind of spread and feather out a bit, and it gives you this softer look than the satin enamels would. The satin enamel gives you a cleaner cell, like the edges are sharper. Just different effects. One is not better than the other, except I didn't want green, so in this particular case, I think maybe the satin enamels would have been the way to go. Still came out cool. It's just not the school colors, so I will try again. But this is what we have. I hope you learned something. I sure did. If you did, please do like, share, and subscribe. Be sure to click that bell if you are subscribed so you get notifications of my new uploads. A very tiny fraction, a literal fraction of a % of my views are coming from subscribers, so something is going on there. Do head over to Facebook and join my art page over there. I will be posting shorts, The Glassy Knoll. The link for that is in the description box. You'll also find my affiliate links and coupon codes in the description box. That you can get yourself a discount on these DecoArt paints, as well as some other companies. You'll also find the link to my website, GinaDeLuca.net, where you can find my art and music and the fluid art inspiration cards for sale. And you'll find the link to our Facebook group, Go Make Some Art. Join us there, post your masterpieces, ask your questions, get some inspiration. A good time is had by most. It is the internet after all. And I do want to say that, yes, this looks very matte and dull right now. When I varnish this, all of that bling will come back to life. It will be in its shimmering glory again. I mean, it makes a pretty green. I just didn't want green. Well, I think that's probably it for me for today. I do hope y'all have a beautiful day. Now go make some art.